Hi, welcome. I'm Dana Klein-Hesslink, the Director of Development and Communications here at the Unity Council. Thank you for joining us for Cocktails and Conversation, a panel discussion about the Real Fruitvale docuseries. I'm also one of the organizers of the annual Fruitvale Dia de los Muertos Festival. And this year is the 25th anniversary of the Dia de los Muertos Festival. Each year, this festival brings out the absolute best of Fruitvale through art, music, family-friendly activities, dance, and obviously the cultura. The Real Fruitvale docuseries has been a very powerful way to bring that best of Fruitvale energy in a virtual format. And this has been one tough year for Fruitvale. Fruitvale has been one of the hardest hit places by COVID-19. Our zip code is more than 50% Latinx, the ethnicity with the highest rates in California. We have only 3% of the county's population, yet 11% of the cases. Thousands of workers here have lost their jobs. Demand for food security programs has grown exponentially, and many of the local businesses have shuttered, and we don't know when or if they'll reopen. But the Unity Council has been there for this community for over 55 years, and this year is no different. Since March, we've raised more than $2 million in emergency cash assistance for rent, food, and other essential expenses. And we've given out checks to nearly 2,000 community members. We're helping hundreds of small businesses weather this crisis, and we have distributed more than 100,000 bags of groceries to children, families, and seniors. We cannot do any of this without your support. Every single dollar donated to the Unity Council goes back to these programs and to keeping the art of Fruitvale Dia de los Muertos Festival alive. So before we begin, I want to ask every one of you to make a donation to the Unity Council, so that we can continue to radiate positivity, hope, and strength. You can go to diaoakland.com/donate. Donors like you are the reason that our Fruitvale Dia de los Muertos Festival has remained free for over 25 years, attracting more than 100,000 people to Fruitvale on a given year. I want to say thank you so much to the many individuals and companies that have already donated and have already sponsored this year's virtual festival and tonight's event. So thank you so, so much. Donors like you are helping thousands of Oaklanders get back on their feet and survive this epidemic. This neighborhood has persevered through difficult times before and will do so again. These are the stories we need for uncertain times, stories that remind us of the strength of our community. I'm going to now introduce you to my colleague, who's going to tell you a little bit about tonight's auction.
Hello, everyone. My name is Iglesias, and I am the Senior Manager of Communications and External Affairs for the Unity Council. And I'm here to tell you about our online live auction happening right now. You can head over to diaoakland.com/auction to see all of our amazing items and place your bid today. Remember, every dollar is a donation back to our programs, and you might get to go home with some amazing items. We have vintage t-shirts from the very first Dia de los Muertos Festival. And for all you Dia Festival fanatics, you should definitely take advantage of it. We have original art by Favianna Rodriguez. We also have a custom Oakland Roots jersey, and as well, a Golden State Warriors jersey autographed by Juan Toscano himself. The auction will be up throughout the weekend. So if you don't get to it today, don't worry. You have all the way until midnight on November 1st. So put in your bid now and keep on checking it because somebody else might outbid you. So make sure to go back in there and place another bid. Thank you all for being with us, supporting this event, and we hope you enjoy the panel.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Bienvenidos. My name is Evelyn Orantes, and for the past 4 years, I've been a creative partner with Unity Council, curating community involvement on various projects, including the Fruitvale Dia los Muertos Festival. I've also had the great honor of working behind the scenes with the very talented creators of Real Fruitvale. The mini docuseries Real Fruitvale showcases the ingenuity of artists and change makers from the Fruitvale neighborhood. Produced by the Unity Council and Favianna Rodriguez in collaboration with Respire Creative, this project aims to amplify untold stories about one of the most diverse, resilient, and fascinating communities in Oakland. Fruitvale has weathered many hardships and tragedies over the decades, yet it's also a place of innovation, collaboration, and creative problem solving. Now, I'd like to present to you the creators of Real Fruitvale and the panelists for our conversation today. First up, the one and only Favianna Rodriguez. She's a longtime Fruitvale resident and interdisciplinary artist, cultural organizer, and social justice activist.
Hello.
Kim Weber and Jeff Arthur are the team behind Respire Creative. They are filmmakers, directors, photographers, and ultimately, as you will see from all the films today, storytellers. Respire Creative is an Oakland production company that specializes in branding through documentary-style filmmaking. And of course, your moderator for today, Chris Iglesias, the CEO of the Unity Council. Chris is a great supporter of local artists and continues to find exciting ways of integrating arts into the work of Unity Council and really keeps all of us out of trouble. So over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Evelyn, and good evening, everyone. It's great to have Evelyn up on the screen with us because she has been a guiding force since we've been working with her probably since started 4 years ago, she was saying. And I think it's just been a tremendous partner with the Unity Council and really been a big connector to the arts community and keeping us honest and keeping us out of trouble and a lot of other things. So Evelyn, thank you very much for the wonderful introduction, and let's get going. But first, if I may, just before we start, we'd like to offer a land acknowledgement on where we all sit right now tonight. So before we jump into the questions, I would like to first acknowledge that the Unity Council's headquarters right here on Fruitvale sit on the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Ohlone people. This land has a deep history and a community of people who have lived here for thousands of years. For those of us who are not indigenous to this land, we acknowledge and recognize the ongoing cultural contributions of the Ohlone people. Thank you. So let's start with some questions for the panelists. I think, oh, we're gonna start a video first. Okay, thank you. See, we have tech support here. We're gonna watch a video first and then we'll come back for the questions. So take it away. We'll be right back with this video. I know they're making a couple of adjustments here.
The Fruitvale community came together on the heels of the civil rights movement, the Chicano movement. the Black Panthers, the Native American struggle. It was in this political climate, in this environment, that the Fruitvale community came together, not only for the struggles of that community, but for other struggles in solidarity with other people of color, in solidarity with other people around the world that were also struggling against social injustice. What comes to mind when I think about the resiliency of the Fruitvale community, you have to go back to when it started, and that was with a group of Chicano students, and they were doing work out in the Fruitvale community, and they saw a need. They saw that this community needed legal services. They saw that this community needed medical care. And so they started working in the community, and they developed organizations as Centro Legal. They developed organizations such as La Clínica de la Raza, and the many others that came to follow.
At the time, the people from those agencies were also deeply involved in community organizing. The Fruitvale was this huge hub of activism. And again, this is against a backdrop of this resurgence of Chicano culture, Chicano pride. So many of those traditions resurfaced.
I became more aware of Dia de los Muertos and began to participate in it when I moved to Oakland. And I think the Cultural Revolution brought back a lot of the practices that many people had let fall to the side. And Dia de los Muertos, I believe, is one of them. In reclaiming our culture, we embrace Dia de los Muertos as they always have in Mexico. To me, the important thing about El Dia de los Muertos is connecting with my ancestors, my antepasados, and not the ancestors too far back either. It's also my mother, my dear friends, my grandmother, some people that I never even got a chance to meet. It gives me a chance to think about them, to be with them in that space, to honor them with the flowers and the incense and, again, the artifacts, something that belonged to them. It's basically it in a word. It's connection to who I am. I think the Fruitvale community is a very resilient community. If you think about the struggles that we had to go through, if you think about the injustices we had to deal with, and still the agencies, most of them anyway, are still there. They're serving more people than ever. But the Fruitvale is a resilient community, and I think it is going to bounce back because it's a community that people trust, that they depend on, that they feel safe in, and that they want to live in.
That was great. That was beautiful. Congratulations, guys. So why don't we start? Yes, let's start with you, Favianna. What was the inspiration for this mini documentary series?
Yes, so what we saw was one episode of 5. This is the episode that we launched today. It's Annette's story. And, really the inspiration, I've grown up in the Fruitvale. I've lived here my whole life. My mom worked here since 1978. In fact, I'm a La Clínica baby. They pointed at the clinic, and I'm a baby from that clinic. And, usually I'm traveling all around the world. I'm an artist that is all over the place. But when the pandemic happened, all of my travels stopped. And I really had to focus on being home. And in being home, I realized just that it was time to tell stories about my community, being here for over 30 years. I think that so much about what the Fruitvale is stories of tragedy. Oscar Grant was killed here. The Ghost Ship Fire happened here, which is known as one of the largest mass casualties in the history of this country. And yet the Fruitvale also has a very rich history that I just didn't really see reflected. And so I've always wanted to create short films. And when I approached the Unity Council, you all were like super excited. And so it just felt like the right time. And I was really happy to collaborate with Jeff Arthurs and KimberLee Weber, who you'll hear from in a little bit. It just felt like the right time. And it was time for, to tell our stories about our neighborhood.
So that actually leads into the next question why was it important to work with Jeff and Kim?
Yeah, so first is, we're in a time of pandemic. The pandemic is disproportionately killing Black and Latinx people in this country. And in California, especially, the #1 dead are Latinx people. And as was said earlier, the Fruitvale is among the hardest hit, if not the hardest hit in our county. And I felt that not only did we need to tell a story, but we needed to tell a story from a multiracial point of view. And that this was the opportunity to actually collaborate with Black filmmakers. I think as an artist, it's not only about the final product, it's about how we work. And I've actually known Jeff for many, many years. And, we're both, stuck in the Bay Area in Oakland. And we just were talking and collaborating. We had done something about Oakland. And it felt like the right time. And so I thought that it would be so important for all of our perspectives to create something beautiful, because I always think that artists really bring their point of view to what they're making, right? And so when we have a multiracial team telling stories about the Fruitvale, it adds a lot. And we are all Oaklanders. We're all very committed to our neighborhood. Kim has a long history of being here and being a storyteller. Jeff has done a lot of work with young people and in the community. So it was really, a dream team. And I think we experimented and just did all kinds of wild things that we would not have had the opportunity to do were it not for the time of pandemic that we're in.
Yeah. Well, our community is better because of your collaboration. I think, Oakland is better. The world is better because of this collaboration. You guys do amazing work. So now let's have a question for Jeff and Kim. So what did you learn about the Fruitvale? Any surprises during the filming and this process?
Jeff, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, the Fruitvale has always been part of one of my favorite neighborhoods in Oakland. I've been attending Dia de los Muertos for years, the festival, and just frequenting some of the businesses there. What was the most surprising thing, I think, in a conversation with you, Chris, is the steps that local folks are doing, that agencies are doing to combat, to make sure that the Fruitvale stays the Fruitvale and doesn't become one of these stories of a neighborhood that used to be thriving, and then gentrification comes in, and now you have Forever 21 and whatever it may be in the thing, right? And no block against Forever 21, but you're trying to make sure that local businesses, local culture, local artists just stay thriving in there. And one of the things that was surprising to me and inspiring is the effort that the agencies are making and local folks are making to ensure that that they have a stake there, that they're purchasing property to establish and just make sure that pieces of it and elements stay the same. And I wish that was happening in more communities, not only in Oakland but across the country.
No, yeah, me too. Kim, how about for yourself?
For me, I was most surprised by just the actual diversity of the neighborhood. I think growing up, you see it as like mainly a Latinx population there, but realizing that there's a lot of different groups. And even among the Latinx folks, like the diversity of those cultures, not everyone speaking Spanish for one is a thing. So learning the complexity of those identities was, very eye-opening.
Did you think your perception of the Fruitvale changed too?
Definitely. And also just hearing the backstory of the history and just the work that the organizations have to do to connect with such a diverse group of people was, very, very interesting.
So this question is for all of you. Why did you select these subjects and these stories? How did that come about? I think you're muted, Favianna.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
there you go.
So actually, I had a long list of people who I wanted to do stories about. And in talking with Jeff and Kim, we kind of narrowed it down. So first is we made a story about Jane Garcia. That story will be launching in a couple weeks. And the reason is because, Jane Garcia, the CEO of La Clinica, has just been such a role model for me. I mean, Jane knew me since I was a little embryo in my mom's stomach. And it's just amazing what she's doing, what La Clinica is doing to mobilize resources for our community that's in crisis. The other person that I was really excited to profile is Keba Conti, founder of Red Bay Coffee. Red Bay Coffee, whose motto is coffee for the people, which is really inspired by the Black Panthers. Keba, I've known Keba for a very long time. He's my neighbor. He lives up the street. Excuse me. And Keba has always just inspired me because he works with formerly incarcerated communities. And I would always follow him on social. And when the pandemic happened, I was just fascinated to see how they were able to pull through. And so I felt his story was important. Amend, who's a graffiti writer, I didn't want to leave out the street artists. I'm an artist. And I think a lot of things that when I was growing up, I remember the wall that said Oakland is proud. I'm not sure how many of y'all remember Oakland is proud, the big graffiti wall that was over there on East 12th. And so for me, graffiti and really hip hop was a big core of me growing up. And I wanted to tell the story of a graffiti writer who was a big part of one of Oakland's most famous graffiti crews, TDK. And then the other story who you just saw, Annette Oropesa, because, there are culture keepers in our community that honestly, I didn't even know existed. And this is, speaking, I've been here for so long and I had no idea that Annette Oropesa had helped start the tradition of Day of the Dead here in Oakland and actually helped start it for the Oakland Museum. And, Annette doesn't necessarily have a presence on social media. And so it was really important for us to do this film because we need to capture all of this history while our elders are alive. And then finally, the last story was me. I wanted to, it was important to tell my story because amazingly, I get invited to so many parts of the country and I'm always, used to be out and about. And there was nothing about my presence in my hood. And so I felt like I was really connecting all of these characters together.
No, that's great. Great point. Keba had one of the best lines, I think, of the series when he said, hands down, Fruitvale's most vibrant neighborhood in Oakland. I was like, all right, we gotta put that on a t-shirt. So let's go over to Kim. Kim, so your work focuses on storytelling, social change here in Oakland. what was exciting about this particular project for you?
Thank you for asking. I think Fabi definitely pushed us to cover a lot of talking points in this piece. So COVID-19, Black and Brown unity, art as a means of therapy, the rich history of the Fruitvale, and weaving all of that, and of course Day of the Dead, weaving all of that together into a narrative that makes sense, that evoked emotion, and that just kind of reflected the complexity of that neighborhood was really like an exciting challenge. It was definitely something newer for me, but I think ultimately will be very meaningful for future generations even to be able to see, you know, the history of this space told from our own perspective.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I totally agree. Let's jump over to Jeff. Jeff, why is it so important to think about who is behind the camera as opposed to like in front of the camera?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what immediately comes to mind is there's a lot of people that can tell good and compelling stories, and stories about you know, activism, and stories about just resilience. So there's a lot of people who can do that. It's a difference when you have somebody who's behind the camera, who comes from resilience and comes from powerful stories and a journey, right? And so I think the more we can encourage, that's part of the work that I do with young people also, is making sure that their stories are validated so that they feel empowered to go out and tell their own stories, and you know, just be engaged with audiences around their own stories. My parents are actually immigrants to this country as well, so a lot of the stories really resonated with me also. My parents come from Guyana in the Caribbean, the tip of South America, the top of South America. And so, yeah, that some of the work ethic that Kaba was speaking about, and just some of the stories that we heard, you know, the thing that Amen said about having to walk that line growing up, of, you know, maybe negative experiences, and then art or a productive path. Like I've personally witnessed that, and then so that shows up in the work that I do. And so yeah, I think all of that comes into play, and sometimes we don't necessarily like it's an authentic experience, so we're not even thinking of it when it comes through our work. It's just something that we live and breathe.
Right. So what are some other like new things that you experimented with as a filmmaker?
Yeah, definitely. I think Kim hit on some of those, you know, tackling some of the themes. So that was a new thing. From a technical point, I have to say this, from a technical point, we worked with one of the young homies, Izzy. I got to give a shout out to Israel Lemu, who he's been a young creator out here. He's in San Francisco actually. But identifying his work as a visual theme to go throughout all the stories is something that was new to me, like creating a visual theme and kind of carrying that out in the way that he did it. So he was a photographer who put those quick animations with photography together, and you'll see that in all the films. I encourage anybody who's not checked out all the films so far to check it out. But having that theme that tied everything together really was, I think, compelling.
So folks could go to your website to check that out?
Yeah, they can go to Dia, somebody had
Oakland.
DiaOakland.com. Check out all the sites and the social media pages of all of us as well.
So there's a wonderful shot in the trailer about the process of building an altar. What was that like for you? I guess I'll just open it up to the panelists.
I think Jeff and I learned a lot about that tradition I mean, growing up, especially living in the Bay Area, it's not like it was altogether foreign to us, but I think recognizing that it was like a celebration of death was like something new. And then also what it meant, it was so powerful. I feel like in our Western world, we just have this tendency to like, you know, put people in graves and kind of forget about them, or maybe visit on their birthdays or a holiday. But like, you know, there's that separation. But when you create an altar that lives in your house and for a minute it's year round, it really like motivates you to process your relationship with them on an ongoing basis. I wouldn't even say mourning. It's just a continuation of your relationship on a different level. And I thought that was really, really special. And it's definitely going to make me reflect on the way that I deal with death in the future.
Yeah, me too. That's a really good point on that. Jeff, anything, or Favianna, did you want to add to that on the altar scene?
Yeah, well, I wasn't there that day, but I helped coordinate that aspect, and it's actually such a key shot because it actually is the reenactment of what are the elements of Dia de los Muertos, and you saw a big part of it in Annette's film. And I think what was just really touching for me is that you know, people, the young actors, my friend Lupe Maravilla did the makeup, and you know, I was just thinking she was going to do something basic. But then when I saw the photos, because we were texting, I was just really moved. And what I loved is that included in the altar were images of people who have been killed by the police, like Breonna Taylor, and Eric Salgado, who was killed here in Oakland, was shot in his car with his pregnant girlfriend, who lost the child. And so I felt like it was such a great sort of hybridization of two cultures, you know? And I just was really moved, and it really became clear why this is so important. And it's important, especially this year, for us to have traditions to celebrate our dead people, because there's a lot of dead people this year. Like COVID has taken away over 210,000 lives, most of them Black, Latinx, and Indigenous. And it's going to continue. I mean, we are facing a resurgence. There's a lot of people who have died because of police violence, because of racist violence. And I really believe that we are in a very key moment in our nation's history where we are reckoning with our past. And so it just felt the fact that we were, you know, recreating an altar, and Kim and Jeff and Iz were there, as well as, you know, these young Latinx folks. It just was very meaningful. And it was in Joaquin Miller Park. And I just was just like, wow, like this is what we get to do as artists, is we get to, you know, we get to recreate it. I think it was shot maybe in July or August. And, you know, months ago. And I just felt like, I just felt really proud of what we were creating, because, you know, we get to then create something that's going to last for a very long time, but there's also something very moving about it. So those young people that you see them right behind Jeff's screen, and you see one of them behind Kim's screen, they were really moved. Like they got to learn about Day of the Dead, and they were able to talk to their tia who did the makeup about it. So all around, I felt that it was a very deeply transformative experience.
So which story has most touched you and why? Kim, you want to start?
Thank you. That's tough. I feel like everyone definitely brought very like compelling things that I wasn't expecting to learn from them. Favianna brought up some really, really good points in her story. And back to the subject of Day of the Dead, what I will forever keep from this project is Favi talking about on her altar, she mourns the pieces of herself that she's evolved from. And I thought that that was really, really special. And again, helps me maintain a tradition with Day of the Dead in a way that I, before this project, didn't even realize was possible. So yeah, I'm really super juiced about all the stories that we created, and everyone said very, very powerful things. But that one I will keep with me.
Yeah. Jeff, how about you?
Yeah, I was trying to think about this well, and I know it seems like the politically correct answer, but I think there is just jewels from each of the stories that resonate with me. From Fabi talking about how their experience with some of the tragic experiences in the Fruitvale molded her art, to Kaba's like just insatiable curiosity and how that pushed him to create what is now Red Bay Coffee. Is on the course to be, one of the biggest coffee companies out here. To Annette, really getting excited about the Fruitvale history and reliving some of that activism and sharing with us some of that activism. So Annette's kind of conversations reminded me of talking to my grandparents who grew up in Georgetown, Guyana, and used to talk about some of the political things that went on and just their part in it and kind of their journeys. And so, yeah, I think there are jewels from every story, Jane's, how activism has created a whole medical system now, with La Clinica and health system now, is just incredible. So, yeah.
Yeah, we have every morning East 14th coffee from Red Bay in our house. So we support it now, but it was great to learn like his story. I didn't realize that how his story. So that was a great one. So what would you tell next if you could extend the series? This is just open to all of you.
Go ahead.
I know one of the stories. So there's two quick things I have. One is that unfortunately, one of the subjects that we are going to highlight, this whole pandemic really hit home during this process. He and his family actually were infected by the virus, and so I think we would almost owe it to him to if we were to do something else to experiment to highlight his story and just a super interesting guy who was in like really instrumental in the lowrider movement that I know has had a presence at First Fridays, has had a presence at Dia de los Muertos for years. And so shout out to Tony Guzman, and I hope everything is all right with your family.
Yeah. Kim?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I think you're muted.
No, I echo that. Go ahead, Fabi.
Yeah, so I have a few. So first is I want to tell the story of somebody I work with. His name is Daniel Mora, and Danny, and I know Danny from when I used to do gang organizing, and I used to help organize the gangs that were here and help support them so that they could find ways to better their life. And I still know Danny today. I met Danny in the early 2000s. And Danny ended up being an artist and a rapper and is now working with young people. But I really want to tell the story of when Fruitvale was like hella gangs and what was happening, because it was a really hard time during that era. And I just think that we need to heal those wounds. I think there's a lot of wounds from that time, because there was also, it was the era of the war on drugs. There was a crack cocaine epidemic in Oakland. Oakland was one of the top cities impacted by the war on drugs. And I think we need to tell that story from the perspective of somebody who was involved in, in the game and is now helping young people to stay out of the system. Also, I want to tell the story of the Cesar Chavez Library. The Cesar Chavez Library, for folks who don't know, is one of the oldest. I think it might even be the first Latinx library in the country, and it's like super amazing. It's right here in our neighborhood. I would love to tell the story of there's a place I really love to eat at. It's called Obelisco. And I remember when the woman who ran Obelisco used to just sell like tacos from a little, like a little stand on the corner. And now, like, her restaurant is always popping, and similarly, there's another restaurant called Reams, which I'm not sure if it's still there, but I think they are helping frontline workers. I mean, Reams, talk about, if you want to find the best hummus and falafels in town, you would go to Reams. And I just love that you could find some of the best ethnic food in the Fruitvale. Of course, the pandemic has deeply impacted, but I think we need to tell the stories of the food vendors, the ice cream people. Like, how are they getting by? The tamaleras, right? And so I feel like there's still a lot of stories to be uncovered. And then one final one is Restore Oakland. So folks don't know that one of the first restorative justice centers is here in our hood. It's just one block over on 34th and International, in a building called Restore Oakland, which is houses a lot of organizations like the Ella Baker Center, Just Cause Oakland, and there is a restorative justice center that was created there by my friend Deanna Van Buren, one of the leading architects, who is leading the way against mass incarceration through architecture and design. One of the only Black women architects, because unfortunately racism has made architecture a very white field. She's amazing, and she's working here in the Fruitvale. So those are the kinds of things that I would love to keep doing. We're just getting started here. Oakland is a hot place. I don't know if y'all heard, but there's a new series that's being done by David Diggs about Oakland. It's going to launch pretty soon. And so I think hopefully, we want to be able to eventually, create things that more people will see on television.
No, well, now I'm very hungry because you were talking about Obelisco and Reams, and those are two amazing places led by women of color, immigrants, and Leticia is amazing over at Obelisco, and so is Reams, and there's others too. But thank you for highlighting them, and then Ella Baker Center and everything. So one of the things I'm supposed to ask you is, like, do you have any questions for me? But I think I would like asking you guys questions because you guys have all these amazing, you guys are doing all these amazing things. But maybe I'll start by just saying that, when I reached out to you maybe in January to talk about this year's Dia de los Muertos, and working with us for our 25th anniversary as a local artist and everything, and you had ideas already popping, right? And I was like, whoa, this is going to be an experience. And the fact that I would be sitting here in my office with these lights on me and our backgrounds, during the pandemic, I mean, we could have never imagined, right, when we started this conversation, and that we were able to work with you and your magic mind, and Jeff and Kim, and how all this happened. It's really amazing that this happened during this pandemic, and how powerful it is. For me, that's kind of what I'm thinking. But do you have any questions for me, any of you?
Yes, I do. Well, first, I just want to let the audience know the amazing work of the Unity Council. The Unity Council is over 30 years old, right, Chris?
55.
55!
Yeah,
wow.
My age. You're much like my age.
Wow. I mean, just talk about longevity. But I think what a lot of people don't know is that the Fruitvale is one of the examples nationally of development that has actually helped slow down gentrification. Like, we're one of the few places that has actually done that. And that's because so much of the work that the Unity Council has done is about investing in the people who already live here. So just like a big shout out to the Unity Council, and also, to you, Chris, because I've lived here, my whole life, but you were really one of the first ones. I used to actually take art classes at the Unity Council, but you're one of the first ones who was actually like, yo, let's do something. So I really love that you all trusted me because I'm just down the block. And sometimes you just got to look in your own neighborhood. One question that I have for y'all, you all are really grassroots in the sense where all your work, you guys do it in the streets, you do it with the community. What was it like for you all to have to move towards digital engagement? And, especially with the collaboration this year, because I also designed the poster, we did these films, but I'm curious to see also what kind of things shifted for you all.
Well, no, that's a good question. I think as soon as the pandemic hit, we had to switch to, doing work virtually, which was a big change for us because the majority of our programs are so hands-on, especially the early childhood education, right? All of our Head Start centers, those are packed with, 750 kids every day throughout Oakland, right? And all of a sudden that had to stop. We had to find a way to do it remotely, right? And I think it took a toll, not only on our staff, but obviously with the families, right? And I think even though the Bay Area has done a great job of really, flattening the curve or whatever, once the shelter in place started, the needs in the community were immediate, right? They were like, our staff, we started hearing from our staff saying, hey, we need to get food out there like right away. We need to get resources out there right away. I think Dana mentioned that earlier. And I think it really exposed how, the difficult situation. I mean, we were already in a crisis mode prior to the pandemic, right? But it was more of an economic. It was around housing, gentrification, displacement, right? So I think, thank you for saying that, because our whole mission is really to do development without displacement. We're not trying to displace them. We're trying to give people opportunity to stay here and ground themselves here in the culture and everything, right? That's our mission. But yeah, it was a big challenge to kind of go to a virtual workspace, but we managed. But at the same time, many of our staff continue to work because we had to, right, run the buildings and public space maintenance and everything. But I'm really proud of the employees of our team and how they responded. And even though it's been one of the most challenging times of our lives, I've seen the greatest act of humanity that I've ever seen. The way people have just stepped up to care for one another, put themselves on the line, almost every day to see it. So it's really powerful. I'm really proud of not just the Unity Council, but La Clinica, Native American, Central. Everybody has just been stepping up. And the fact that you could highlight a part of what's going on right now is and tie it to this huge event for us. This cultural event has been is just a huge blessing. And I thank all of you for the work that you guys did. It's really proud to be partnering with you. I'm not sure how much time we have. Okay. Oh, Jeff or Kim, any questions or any final comments?
I was just going to say, from a filmmaker's perspective, in documentary filmmaking, people can, and rightfully so, be a little skittish with being documented on the street. But as soon as we told people that we were filming for the Unity Council, they welcomed us with open arms. So I thought that was very cool and spoke to obviously the really good work you all do in the community. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I also say, driving around after we had that conversation about what the Unity Council is doing in the community, being able to drive around and be like, oh yeah, and this is a stronghold or an investment in the community, and this is one over here. And so that was cool to see.
Well, I think it's time to have a toast to all of you, to the mini series and idea, and thank you again, and cheers to all of you.
Thank you.
And everybody watching.
Thank you.
Yeah, cheers. And I encourage everyone to purchase a t-shirt or a bag. I made the design The shirts are going really fast, but my design is very 2020. You know, there's a little frame in the art piece that says COVID-19, which is honoring all those dead from COVID. In the papel picado that is in the top, there's the papel picado says Black Lives Matter, las vidas negras importan. There's a little pan de muertos, and it has all of my favorite plants, just like you see here behind me, a spider plant, snake plant. So it has a lot of really wonderful details that are about the time now. So thank you so much for supporting. Please spread the word about our mini docuseries and support the Unity Council.
And get ready for Chuy Gomez is coming on pretty soon here, from what I understand. But again, thank you all very much. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you guys for the past hour, and congratulations, and hope we'll all be able to connect soon in person.
Thank you. The show.
Bye. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Hi. Hi, and thank you to everybody who joined us tonight, and for everybody who's made a donation, an auction, bid on item in our auction, or purchased our Dia official merchandise. We thank you so much for your support, and of course, like, stick around for the next hour. We will have. And yeah, stick around for the next hour. We will actually have an after party with Bay Area legendary DJ Chuy Gomez, who's been on the air for more than 30 years. Plus, he's performed at multiple years at the Fruitvale Dia de los Muertos Festival. We are incredibly honored to have him with us tonight. This dance party will be hosted on Zoom. So if you've registered to this event on Eventbrite, you should have already the link to the Zoom in your inbox. And you can also join us by going to zoom.us/join and entering the meeting ID and password, which you should be seeing momentarily. All right, we'll see you on the virtual dance floor.